channel. Today's video, it's gonna be something a little bit different than what we are used to here on the channel, but we are going to be having a little chat about this particular car and just 240SXs in general. So most of you guys, especially those of you who probably were searching and ended up finding this video, are kind of curious on, is it smart financially to buy a Nissan 240SX in 2024? I'm sure a lot of you guys are aware, these are obviously going up in price. They used to be really affordable, which is essentially why they were so popular early on. But with the prices and everything going up, I kind of wanted to take a second, give you my opinion on if it's worth it to buy one right now. I did actually make a little script here, so we're gonna cover a little bit of information in this video, and hopefully I can kind of help guide you guys, or at least give my opinions on if I think you should buy one of these. So first of all, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of channel lore, I guess. So I put in here, why did I want an S chassis originally? So basically I've always wanted a 240 ever since I was like 15, 16 years old, basically until I could drive. I've always wanted an S chassis. I just always thought that they were super, super cool. What sparked the interest is I basically found out about drifting at a pretty young age. So watching the movie like Tokyo Drift, I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen it. That's actually a pretty big inspiration for myself. It kind of sparked everything. Fun fact, I actually really wanted DK's 350Z back in the day. So I would still totally build a Z at some point. I don't know if I'd really style it like that anymore, but I really wanted that car when I was younger for sure. And then so I kind of learned, did a little bit of research, found out about Initial D, which if you guys don't know, it is a manga slash anime that's about like toge racing, or basically street racing in Japan in the probably late 80s, early 90s period. So it's super, super cool. It's not essentially drifting, but it kind of reinforces that whole idea that Japanese 90s old shitty cars are really cool, hence why I own one. And then so, you know, upon doing some research, found YouTubers that I like to watch, but the S chassis kind of stuck out to me because it's what everybody seemed to drive, right? So naturally, you start looking into drifting, things like that, everybody seems to drive S chassis, so I was kind of curious as to, you know, why that is. Did a little bit of digging. Turns out they're balanced really well. Obviously front engine, rear wheel drive, manual, cheap car like it was back in the day. That's why everybody sort of had one. So it kind of made me venture down that road. And I just like the styling of the S chassis overall. The only car that I would probably get rid of this one for would probably be like a Chaser, but I didn't really learn about Chasers until a little bit later because obviously we never got them in the States, so not as many people have them. The S chassis kind of became the best drift car that you can buy, so to speak. I know a lot of people will kind of disagree with that aspect, but you can't deny that it's obviously one of the most goated drift car chassis out there. A topic that I get asked sometimes, which I'll just be very transparent with you guys, is how much did I actually pay for this car? So I actually bought my 240 in 2021, so it was kind of during COVID, all that. I picked it up for $6,500. Which I know a lot of you guys probably just went, oh my God, he overspent a lot for that. But you know, I did a little bit of research before making this video. I think I got a pretty good deal because this car's stupid clean. It came from Atlanta, Georgia. And obviously it was just a low mileage KA, so very reliable. It's not an SR or anything like that. A lot of SRs you can kind of run into problems because people, you know, overbuild them or do whatever. So it's just a KA. I daily drove it 2 summers and it was perfectly fine the whole time. But so I looked online, you can find KA S chassis right now for $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 that are not even as close to as clean as this one. And it might not even be a dual cam, it's probably like a single cam or something. So in today's world, I'd say I got a pretty good deal, or at least a fair deal, given probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. This car right here probably would have been $3,000, which is kind of ridiculous. So you could argue that it's a little bit of an investment, but I wouldn't do that because cars are not investments, guys. If you think you're gonna buy one to make money, just don't even do it. So I have listed in here as well some of the key reasons that I personally bought one. Obviously I like the JDM styling of it, so the whole 90s Japanese car style I think is just superior, if you ask me. Obviously, you know, you look at one of these, you can't get over the timeless 90s design, pop-up headlights, all of the, I like the old interior, as shitty as it is. I think it's really, really cool. The body lines, the simplicity of it all, it definitely pulls the car together for me. I like the nostalgia factor of it. Like I said, back in the 90s and that, when drifting was really, really on the come up back in Japan, these were kind of the car to have if you were getting into that scene. So I like having a car that's been in the scene since essentially the beginning It's pretty cool, and people definitely like seeing that because people recognize it as, you know, it's one of the greats. It's one of the best chassis ever made to do the drift. So it's definitely really cool. Like I said, I wanted a lightweight rear-wheel drive car. So obviously this checks pretty much all of my boxes in that aspect. Wanted a drift car, so naturally fell into an S chassis. There's tons of aftermarket support for these cars. So you got companies like Injuku, Z1, Nissan parts for like OEM stuff. There's a whole lot of support on these vehicles for parts, which makes it super easy to essentially rebuild one from the ground up. And you also have a lot of forums with really helpful people, making it super easy in that aspect too. And I wanted a project, so I bolded this one up on here. I specifically wanted a car to tinker with, tear apart, rebuild, toy with it, mess with it, figure everything out. Now, most people only want one for the clout, and they don't know anything about cars. So if you're one of those people where you're just getting into cars and you're like, oh man, an S chassis is so cool, you gotta realize that these things are 30 years old now, at least S13s, and they're not really nearly as good as they used to be. So if you're looking for something that's going to be relatively easy to own, you don't really have to replace a whole lot off the bat, stuff like that, I don't know if I'd recommend one of these to you, just because this is a car that you're gonna have to do your research, you're gonna have to learn it, you're gonna have to put time in the garage, things like that. So speaking of that, I made a little list here at the bottom. We're gonna go over some pros and some cons about the vehicle. Now, I might be a little bit biased, but I tried to leave the bias out of it when making this video, just because I thought that it would be a little bit easier for you guys to, you know, determine if it's right for you or not. One of the main pros that I already said, aftermarket parts are huge for this thing. You can get pretty much any sort of aftermarket part that you can imagine for these cars. Obviously, another pro is the timeless 90s styling and also the simplicity. Definitely big on the simplicity aspect. That's also why I'm very biased towards like 90s cars. I just think they have all the necessities and they're not overbuilt. Like I said, very easy to work on, big pro. If you're looking to learn on a car, 99% of the community is actually super nice, very helpful people. So if you have a problem, you can either go on, there's a bunch of groups on Facebook, you can find old ancient forums on the internet. If you have any problem on this car whatsoever, no matter what it is, chances are you'll be able to find someone who had the same problem, or at least somebody who's knowledgeable enough to teach you about it and educate you. Those are kind of some pros that I have about the car. Obviously, it does have its fair share of cons, so we're gonna get into that real quick. So, like I mentioned before, as a pro, the 90s styling and everything is really cool, but I also put that in a con because obviously it's got timeless 90s styling, but what you get with that, it's a Nissan. And I don't know if you guys know much about Nissans, even like new Nissans, like the new GTR, the interior didn't change for like 10 years. So Nissan interiors are not notoriously the best things in the world. Factory radio, if you do get one with factory radio, the factory speakers suck. 99% of these, including mine, do not have air conditioning. So if you live somewhere like I do, I live in Indiana, so it's not that crazy, but like right now it's 80 degrees out and humid. I'm probably not gonna go drive this around too much because it's so hot outside. These are 30 years old, so timeless Japanese styling, all of your factory suspension, and all the rubber and everything is probably gonna be cracked. I don't know if you guys are following along. If not, go check it out, but I just rebuilt the whole rear subframe in this car. Pretty much every single rubber bushing that was in this thing was completely totaled, so you're gonna have to go through that. Most of the OEM parts that are on this thing that you can think of, you'll probably be able to find. The only downside is, usually if you can find them, if it's something that's kind of sought after and people need a lot, it's gonna be super expensive, or you're gonna get those parts that you can't find that are discontinued by Nissan. So OEM parts, if you're looking to fully restore one to like factory spec, it's gonna be very difficult. So you either better have a lot of patience to find the part or a lot of money, because you're gonna need probably both of them, to be honest with you. A lot of people argue they cost too much now. So like I said, this car, I'll just be transparent with you. I don't think it's worth it, but I've been offered $14,000 for this car, and I bought it for $6,500 3 years ago. So the prices of these things just keep going up and up and up and up. So that's a pretty big con if you're looking to get into drifting, like simply just get into drifting. There's a few cars that you can buy for the same price as one of these that are probably gonna be better, which I have a little list. We'll get into that a little bit more down the road. Another con, now this is a con to some people, myself, this is what I wanted, but you will have a project. So this car, like I said, it is 30 years old. Let that sink in. I'm 23, so this thing is significantly older than I am. It's probably older than most of you guys who are watching this video. So with that being said, you're gonna have to go through it, you're gonna have to fix things. So you will have a project car. Do not buy this for a daily, wouldn't recommend it. So like I mentioned, now that we kind of know a little bit more about the 240, I made a list. If you guys are looking for something similar, trying to drift or trying to accomplish something similar, I have a list of like alternate options that might work a little bit better for you guys and the reasons why. So the first one I have on my list is the first generation Subaru BRZ Scion FRS Toyota 86. I think these are phenomenal cars. I've debated before, like if I get a newer chassis to drift, I'm probably gonna buy one of these just because I think it's the new S chassis. So you gotta think it is a manual, rear wheel drive, relatively cheap car, right? That's what these were brand new. They have loads of aftermarket support. Everywhere you look, you can get full suspension, body kits, interior pieces, supercharger kits, pretty much anything that you need, you can find them anywhere. And you can still buy parts new from Toyota or Subaru. It makes it super, super easy. Second option I have on this list, G35, G37, 350Z, 370Z. We're gonna pair all those up. Now the 370Z, 350Z might be a little bit more expensive, but those are really great if you're trying to drift because obviously they're relatively cheap. They're super reliable, so if you get a VQ, now some of you guys might hate on them, but the VQ is an absolute tank of an engine. If you keep it stock, those things will rip forever. They have a decent interior, especially the Infinities are a little bit nicer since it's a luxury car from Nissan. So you get that nicer interior, a nice reliable, plenty of power stock. I think they make like, you know, high 200, 300 horsepower from the factory, which is plenty to party. Makes more than this thing does right now. So those are definitely a good option as well. I think the styling is pretty good. And so all around, they're a pretty good car. I also put the Genesis Coupe on here. A lot of you guys might not really like that because you're like, oh dude, it's Korean, whatever. I think Hyundai is a pretty decent brand. I had a Veloster not too long ago. It didn't cause me any problems. And I see plenty of people drifting these Genesis Coupes. Now I will say if you do get a Genesis Coupe, because I was researching them a little bit myself, get a BK2 or the newest body style because the motors in those are a lot better and they make more power. Like if you get the 4-cylinder turbo one, for example, it makes plenty more power over the first gen. And I think the styling is a little bit better. So a BK2 Genesis. Another good option I have on here that's a little bit newer, an IS300 or an SC300. So these are really good options. You get a naturally aspirated 2JZ, so you could tell people, yo, I got a 2J. It's not turbo though, so don't pretend like you're that cool. But it comes with a 2JZ, which is insanely reliable. It's a Toyota engine, especially naturally aspirated. That thing, you know, you can turbo those. They do a GTE conversion and they can make 500 horsepower reliably and you'll have zero problems at all. You get a pretty nice interior because it is a Lexus, so you can get leather, you know, you'll get a decent radio, the gauge clusters and everything, they're pretty stylish, and overall they're just a good looking car, plenty of aftermarket support. I did put a Miata on here for you Miata fanboys. I'm gonna kind of make you mad with this. I would recommend the NB over the NA. Now the NA is cool if you like the 90s styling. The NB is a better car. It's more refined, has a better engine, but with that, like I said, it's gonna be a little bit newer. You can find parts from Mazda super easily because they were mass produced, and they are insanely reliable cars. So if you're looking for a cheap rear wheel drive fun car that's cheap to mod, Miata is definitely the way to go. If you can find a good deal on one, but the E36 is kind of becoming like the German S chassis. It's becoming a little old, they're getting a little bit more expensive, so I think the 46 is the way to go. My homie Wes just picked his up for actually a really good deal, and you know, it's got a nice leather interior. You get the manual, a inline 6 that makes decent power. It's got enough to party. You get a lot of aftermarket support, a lot of helpful community members as well. So the E46 would also be a really good option. Is it worth it? Is it worth it to buy a 240SX in 2024? So I kind of wrote that if you can handle the bullshit pricing and you're cool with paying a little bit more money and you're cool with working on your own car, I think that it's 100% worth it to get an S chassis in 2024. The main reason being the prices for these are not coming down. They're still relatively affordable if you have a decent job and another form of transportation. You could definitely save up and buy an S chassis. Now I said if you're looking for a simple car that's gonna be very forgiving, then I probably wouldn't get an S chassis. Like I said, it's 30 years old, you're gonna have to tear it apart, you're gonna have to rebuild things, you're gonna have to read and learn, and you're gonna have to refine your mechanic skills in order to own one of these successfully. S chassis is not for the weak. You really have to kind of be about that life, especially if you're gonna drift one. You have to be cool with doing the research, taking your time, being in the garage, wrenching on your car. It's not just gonna be one of those cars you can put wheels, coilovers, handbrake, and go slide it, because it's probably going to have other minor issues that you need to take care of if you do things the right way, which please build your cars the right way. I'm sick of seeing half-assed builds. I know we're in the times of respect all builds, but I'm just gonna be transparent with you guys. We're not getting that on this channel, okay? We do not respect every build on this channel. But yes, I do believe that the S chassis is one of the best cars that you can buy if you're looking for essentially a toy that you're gonna work on and have fun with. Now, I just wanted to wrap the video up. I wanted to say to anyone watching, if you're gonna buy one of these, do more research. Don't just take my word for it, take other people's words for it. These are getting harder and harder to find, and the clean ones obviously are being scooped up, or they're becoming collector cars now, so you can't really find them. And unfortunately, what's happening is a lot of these people, they want them for the clout, so to speak, to be cool, because they're like, oh, I want a 90s drift car, the S chassis is the way to go. So they buy a cheap one, and then put super shitty parts on it, and then it falls apart, and then they'll sell it once they blow it up or something for $6 grand, and then it's just a junk, rotted out S chassis for $6,000, which is kind of what you're running into nowadays. So if you're gonna buy one of these, do research, know what you're getting into, have a passion for the car, and take care of the car. I'm not necessarily a purist. I think you should drive them. If you get one and want to drift it, go right ahead. But at least take good care of the car and keep it alive. Don't just let it be a shitbox for its entire life. So hopefully, if any of you guys are looking for a 240 in 2024, for one, I want to say good luck. If you guys have any questions, just drop a comment down below. I'll do my best to kind of help you guys out. I'm fairly knowledgeable when it comes to the cars. But if you're willing to put up with everything, I just say go ahead, pull the trigger, and do it. See you guys in the next one.